Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. Today, we get to continue on with the Hyperion Cantos by Dan Simmons. This has turned out to be one of my favorite science fiction series ever, totally. So today, we are going to be talking about The Fall of Hyperion. This is the second book in the Hyperion Cantos by Dan Simmons. So if you are interested, stay tuned. Review on this coming right up. Alright, so as mentioned, The Fall of Hyperion is the second book in the Hyperion Cantos series. So if you've not read the first book, Hyperion, definitely go check that out. I will have the link to the first book in this video description, my review to the first book, so definitely go check that out. This is just really a awesome, phenomenal science fiction series. So just let's kind of get the setting on where this world takes place, the kind of world that Dan Simmons has created, or I guess universe or galaxy that Dan Simmons has created with this. So the whole setting of this story takes place about 700 years in humanity's future. So about 700 years, give or take, in our future, the galaxy has been colonized by humanity. And it is now ruled by this technocratic hegemony ruled up by a CEO as the leader of humanity is referred to. So it's kind of got this technocratic government that is been set up in humanity's future. And all the worlds within the galaxy are basically linked by these farcasters, which are essentially, they're these portals through space-time that allows you to transition between worlds virtually instantaneously. And that's how everything is linked together in this galaxy, or this world that Dan Simmons has created with Hyperion. So it's one of those intergalactic empire type situations. I mean, strictly speaking, the government is not like imperialistic, it's not an empire, but is one of those intergalactic civilizations. But the unique thing about this is that this is a government that is effectively ruled by AI, although humanity would argue otherwise. They don't feel like they're actually ruled by artificial intelligence. But there is this segment of society, which is AI, or the core intelligence, essentially, who formed their own society at some point in the history of this intergalactic civilization. They rebelled against humanity and this idea that they were created to effectively be slaves to humanity as their sole purpose for these AI intelligences. Basically, AI got too smart for her own good, and they decided that they were going to break off and become their own society, and they kind of formed a separate controlling element within the techno core. And they now control basically everything, as much as human government would argue against that very idea, but they become so dependent and rely on the AI, or artificial intelligences, that have been created and have basically broken off to create their own society. And within the AI society, there's actually different factions. There's three main groups within the AI society, which can't be in agreement about how to make things work and what to do and how to make all that work. So one of the groups being the Stables. The Stables are a group that want to maintain this symbiotic or symbiosis with humanity. So they want to work with humanity for the greater good of all, essentially. But then we have the Volatiles. This is a group of AI intelligences that wish to destroy all the humanity, so that the only thing left is the AI intelligences. And then we have the Ultimates, who want to defer any decision on what should be done with humanity until they realize their next level of super intelligence consciousness, or supreme intelligence, has been realized. So that's kind of the society in the world which has been built by Dan Simmons with this whole Hyperion Cantos. Right, just based on that, it's just awesome. It's just awesome. You could build such an awesome story around those ideas in and of itself. And that's part of what I think makes this book series so awesome. Absolutely love that. So this one, The Fall of Hyperion, picks up right where Hyperion left off, essentially. But we're introduced to this new character called Joseph Severn. So he is basically become this advisor to the CEO of the galactic governance, and he's having the dreams, so these real-time dreams of the pilgrims that we were introduced to in the first Hyperion book. So he's dreaming the events that are actually happening on Hyperion in the time tunes and the Shrike and everything that's going on there. As we learn more about the Shrike, the purpose of the time tunes, what happened, why they're there, and what the Shrike's purpose and ultimate objectives are in the first place. And in the meantime, what we have is this mysterious group of people, the Ousters, who seem to or be invading the entire world web. So the world web is how all these connected worlds linked together is referred to, the world web. And these Ousters, this mysterious group of people from deep space, are coming in, and they are invading the world web. At least that's what it appears to be. And it seems that they're on a mission to destroy the world web and completely eradicate the society that's been built up around this. So that's the basic setting and plot and storyline that's going on here, as far as the key elements of how the story progresses and utilizing which ideas, essentially. But one thing that I really enjoyed about this is this book seems to play off of some really interesting concepts or ideas that I love seeing played out in the whole science fiction genre. For one, the idea that humanity, by its very nature, is destructive and will destroy anything that they don't understand, anything that might stand in its way of its ability to progress, or anything like that. So part of that concept which has come up is this idea that when humanity was spreading out through the galaxy and they were going to terraform other worlds, they would destroy all native life on that planet in an effort to reshape the world to fit humanity's needs, without care for the indigenous life or species that they destroyed along the way. So even if it is a life-supporting planet, they would still kill off all naturally occurring life in an effort to reshape the planet for the type of life that humanity wants there, whether wants or needs, including those semi-sentient or sentient intelligent life forms who might seem to pose a threat to our very way of life or our existence, and might actually be a threat to our survival or a competition for survival. And this is a very kind of a dark view of humanity. Whether that's true or not true, I'll let you, the reader, decide that. But this really has kind of dark overtones to the view of humanity, that we would go out in the stars to conquer other worlds and destroy the other life in there to make way and clear space for humanity. So it really is kind of this dark view of humanity in that respect. Dan Simmons here, he's not writing a story with a happy view of humanity. You know, it's like the anti-Star Trek, I guess, where Star Trek has this very positive, bright future view of humanity. Dan Simmons definitely shows a very much darker overtones to his story, which for me actually kind of makes it more interesting. I love having kind of that dark thematic elements built within the story. And this just doesn't apply to the natural occurring life, but also artificial life as well. So part of that is the artificial life which we have within the system. So cybrids, which are effectively these resurrected personas from the past merged with the technocore artificial intelligence built into them. And so our Joseph Severn is one of these cybrids, but even the cybrids have to hide their identity, because otherwise they too would be hunted and destroyed by those that fear even artificial life, even artificial intelligence and sentience. So really just this dark idea that we will destroy anything that is in our path that isn't human, essentially. Some of the other main themes of this book, which I kind of find more of a central theme or ideology within this series anyway, is this focus of religion and society and the interplay. And I think that this book does a really decent job of contrasting the diminishing religions of today, with the main focus being around Catholicism, being a church that still exists in this time period in this book, but is severely diminished and much, 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 much smaller. It's basically become, this fringe group with very few members left in the galaxy, versus what would be considered a modern day religion within this book, which would be the Shrike cult, or as I like to call it, the death cult of the Shrike. But there is the Shrike Church and the Shrike Temples, and it kind of contrasts the two in terms of the religiosity of these different groups of people. Now, the religion itself, religion as a whole, doesn't play any kind of significant role within the greater society, but it's interesting to see this contrast between the current Shrike Temple or Shrike religion, or death cult of the Shrike, contrasted against Catholicism, and how the kind of two merge as part of this whole storyline. It all comes together and coalesces within that. So there's definitely that, which is something that I find absolutely fascinating as we look through the interplay of these different ideas, and the interplay of the God and interpretation of God and the seeking of God throughout this. So part of that religious discussion, you could say, revolves around this cruciform parasite, which is basically this parasite in the form of a cruciform, which embeds itself into its victim's chest and puts them through this perpetual cycle of death and resurrection, constantly bringing you back to life, and then you die again. And so it's kind of this, spins off this idea of resurrection and Godhood being the cruciform, of course, and the resurrection, kind of this, dark alternative version of the religion involving the cruciform. And we have the idea of this sacrifice being needed, as many religions have demanded as well. So sacrifice must be given to the Shrike, becoming the god or lord of pain. And its victims effectively become impaled, if not on the Shrike itself, then on this, what's been termed the Shrike tree, which kind of you could look at as this alternate version of the Tree of Life. So this kind of twisted, dark, morphed version of the Tree of Life, where its victims are impaled upon it but never actually dying. So they're suffering in agony, just praying for, wishing for death, while they live in this constant state of agony, never actually dying while being impaled upon this tree. And one of the other aspects that they have, as far as the religious aspect discussed in this book, is this tale of Sol Weintraub and his daughter, who has been cursed with this backward aging. So she's been aging backward in time as she grows younger and younger, to the point of becoming a newborn infant and eventual death if nothing is done here. And her father, Sol Weintraub, he is constantly plagued with these dreams about Abraham and having to sacrifice Isaac, and feeling that God is telling him to go to the Shrike and sacrifice his daughter, but he's questioning the legitimacy of a God that still asks for a child sacrifice from a parent. And so he's struggling with this idea within religion and this idea of God and what he should do. And this eventually leads him to bring his daughter on a pilgrimage to the Shrike in an effort to find a cure for her backward aging condition. And he really wants to find a solution to this, and he really needs to figure out whether is he going to obey God, or what he feels is God commanding him to sacrifice his child, or will he make a different decision, and what this pilgrimage is going to do for him. And that, in the meantime, we have the artificial intelligences who are seeking to create this ultimate intelligence. So this idea of this ultimate intelligence being God and being the one to control everything ultimately. So we have these different ideas of religiosity interplaying within the whole story framework, along with the idea of gods being created by the very people that worship them. It's just become a really fascinating read, seeing the interplay of everything that's going on within that. And it's really what has made this story such an enjoyable story and such an awesome story from start to finish. And I am absolutely loving the whole Hyperion Cantos series. It's just absolutely fascinating. So it almost at times reads kind of like this allegorical, dark, alternative version of religiosity versus God as well. And those were kind of the aspects of it that really stood out to me. It just became a fascinating read from start to finish. Those are the things that I absolutely love to read. That is what I'm absolutely enjoying within this book as a whole, and just fantastic. Absolutely loving it. Just wonderful book. Go pick it up, check it out. Highly recommended. And of course, if you have not yet read The Fall of Hyperion, definitely be sure to read Hyperion first. And yeah, if you're a science fiction fan, this is well worth it. Just an incredible, fascinating read. Loved it. 5-star review for me. Absolutely. So those are my thoughts on The Fall of Hyperion. Let me know in the comments below. Have you read it? Did you enjoy the books? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? I'm totally open to that discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to comment below. And of course, if you have not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can get those notifications about when I upload my next video. So those are my thoughts there on The Fall of Hyperion. Great read. Check it out. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Of course, links to my social media profiles will be in the description below. And we will see you next time on the next episode of Drew's Book Reviews. Until then, keep on reading. Bye.